What's up, crew? Welcome back to the channel. Today we've got another scorcher here. It's real hot out. Of course, I chose a black shirt to work in, dumb me. But I'm working on a bit of a side hustle here today. I got a car there that was crashed out, and I'm just stripping it for parts, selling them and whatnot. You know, if you know the market and you can pick these cars right, you find them on Marketplace or something like that. A lot of people don't have insurance and whatnot nowadays. So they'll crash something and then they'll just need to get rid of it. And that's what I did here. I got this Lexus IS350 behind me. It's a 2006. I haven't really been filming much of that yet, but I've just been stripping parts off this thing, listing them on Marketplace, getting rid of them. And the big part I want to get out here is the engine. That's the thing that's going to be worth the most money in this car because it's a valuable part that people are looking for. Lexus charges a fortune. The wreckers are charging like $4,000 for these things. So before anyone buys an engine, they usually want to check the compression numbers. That's a pretty important part to know that will tell you that that engine is going to run well, assuming that it has adequate spark, fuel, and air. So if it has those three things, an engine with good compression should run. You have a pretty good chance that that's going to be a good engine. So I'll show you this car here. It's pretty messed up. It was a front end hit. So I can't start it. I can't run it. There's too much of the electricals messed up. So how are we going to do that? We got to get a compression check done before I strip this engine out of here. So here is the car, and you can see the front end's all, I've stripped quite a bit here so far, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, we'll clean this up here, get everything out of the way. We can't have anything in the way of anything that's going to move. So I'll do that first. I'll set you up. We'll take a look at things here, and then we'll see if we can figure out how to get a compression check done with this thing on when we can't use the key and there's no way to start it with the computer. So, okay, let's do that. All right, so we're cleaned up enough now that we can get in there, do some work. I've got everything away from the accessory drive because that thing's going to spin when we go ahead and engage the starter and fire this engine. Not going to be firing it up. There's no gasoline or anything like that. But when we spin this engine, the accessories are going to spin, and I don't want that grabbing a wiring harness or something like that and just tearing it out of the car. I don't want anybody's hands getting in the way or anything here. So cleaned up enough that we can go ahead and get in and do something here. Next step is going to be pull out the coils and the spark plugs. When you're doing a compression check on an engine, one thing you want is to get rid of any of that resistance that engine has to push against and stuff. So you yank those out so all those cylinders can just push that air straight out of the spark plug hole, and that'll make it a lot easier to do things. So I'll set you up, you can see that. All right, so this side's a bit of a jerk here. We got all this wiring harness, the main wiring harness running right across the top of our coils where we need to get at. And then of course this intake manifold hangs right over too, but I don't think that's going to get in our way. So I'm just going to go ahead and start trying to rip and tear here and get whatever we need to out of the way that we can get at those coils. And then obviously the spark plugs. A little vacuum line here for a brake booster right off the intake manifold. And whoever was driving this must have not been using the brakes because it crashed it up pretty good. I actually suspect that it was a guy that was drinking and driving. So don't be silly and do that, kids. I found a lot of alcohol bottles in the car once I got this thing, and they were all empty. But I'm assuming that's probably why this guy didn't claim his insurance. I mean, whether he had any or not. I'm just speculating. I don't really know. But it just seemed like a plausible answer to what had happened to this car. The front end was messed up pretty good. Still a pretty nice car, and they're worth a decent amount of money. So, I mean, I would assume that you would have proper insurance on a car like that. You know, you don't want to be out a bunch of money. Okay, I think I can get at things here now. Assuming these coils want to let go of these plugs. This is one thing about these cars when they get old. The clips on a lot of these things, these electrical connectors, they get brittle. They don't like to come apart. And you got to be careful. You don't want to break those things. Next thing you know, I mean, I'm not so worried about this because it's a junker anyway. I'm just going to sell the engine. I don't even care about the wiring harness. I can just cut this off for all I care. But still, you never know what people might want. So you try and be a little bit gentle with things. Let's get this one more pot clip out of here. There we go. I should let this last plug clip let go. There. Now, got one more cam sensor or a fuel pressure sensor here that we want to get off. Now, I don't know how many of you watching are into cars, and you know, if that's something you want to see more of on here, you know, feel free to let me know. I'm a big car guy, and I'm a Red Seal journeyman mechanic by trade, so it's kind of in my wheelhouse, and that's why I like to make some of my side hustles about cars. You know, ways that I can make some extra money, flipping cars, fixing them. You know, I run shop out of my garage and stuff like that, just trying to make a few extra bucks here and there. Okay, that looks like it is just, won't even bother unplugging this because it looks like it's just hanging on by a bracket. A little 10 mil. Let's get that guy out of there. Perfect. Okay, now I think we can get at these coils. They're all just held on a few 10 mil bolts. I will say Lexus sure makes it easy because I think you could take apart 90% of this car with a 10 millimeter. So that makes things simple. You're not chasing down different wrenches and sockets and ratchets and everything all the time. This little guy wants to be difficult. That intake manifold is really just hanging right in the way here. The other side's going to be super easy. It's all nice and open. Everything's pretty easily accessible. Sure makes everything accessible when I got no radiator or fan or bumper or rad support or anything in my way here. That's the one nice thing about working on a crashed car. All right, coil, let go. I can't even barely get my hands in there. There we go. Now, oh yeah, just cleared that intake manifold. Beauty. Let's put that up there. Here goes. Second one. These are all nice Denso Toyota coils too. They're the good OEM ones. Somebody hasn't replaced these with some aftermarket Chinese knockoff yet, so that'll be good for whoever buys this engine. Things are still in good shape, I think. All right, now do I have an extension long enough to fit in this hole? No. Let's get another extension here. Okay, now I like to break spark plugs by hand. I mean, you could just rip them out with an impact driver there, but you never know with these things. There's some vehicles too that are worse than others, and they're known to have very few spark plug threads. Ford. And those things can tend to tear out when you rip on them too hard with too much torque. You know, or you'll get them where you get some corrosion and oxidation, and you don't want to rip that with a lot of torque right away, or like I say, you can just end up wrecking the threads, and that's no good, because if you wreck the threads on a head, well, have fun, because that whole head's got to come out now and get drilled and retapped for new threads on it. But there we go. We got those all loose now. So now I'll go ahead and just pull these out with a little bit of just Just a little bit of torque here. Where did I leave my... So yeah, now that they're loose, we go ahead and back those out with the gun. Save ourselves a little bit of work. And last one this side. All right. And wow, I don't know if you can see that. Spark plugs look pretty good. Still a good gap. Tons of electrode left. They're just slightly black like they should be if they've been burning fuel. And they're not white like they've had coolant going in there from possibly a blown head gasket or anything. So we're already onto a good sign here that this is a good engine. But of course, the compression is going to be the real telltale here. All right, let's do the other side. That's it. Everything's out. So we should have nice, easy, low resistance for doing our compression check. So let's get some gauges here first and we'll go from there. All right, we got our gauge here. Now, this is a pretty cheap tool and this thing will do a lot of help for you in the garage. I'm using it to do a compression check right now, just to check if an engine's good. But one thing that, like, you guys can let me know if this is something you want me to cover more, but misfires. Like, you get codes for misfires on a car. It won't run very good. You can tell a cylinder's not firing correctly. Now, that seems to be a really misunderstood phenomenon, these misfires. I don't think a lot of people know what it is, which means they struggle to diagnose these things. So if you guys want me to talk more about misfires, I can do a whole video about that and show you how to troubleshoot that sort of thing. But a gauge like this will come in handy for that. But if you want, let me know and I can shoot a video about that in the future. So we got a gauge hooked up here now. All right, sorry guys, we got interrupted there. I had to stop the recording for a second. Now, like I said, we got that gauge in the hole there. So now when the piston comes up, it's going to create pressure against that gauge and it's going to give us a pressure reading. And that's how we're going to know. What we're looking for here is that all those cylinders are all roughly the same pressure. You don't want any big variations is the big thing. However, the spec on this specific Lexus with this V6 engine, if I recall correctly, is around 190 pounds. I think it gives you a range. I'd have to reconsult the manual again. But once I get the numbers, and then if anything looks off, I'll go ahead and consult the numbers again in the service manual. So here's the question. How do we go ahead and make that engine turn now that we can't start it with the key? So I got another battery. I'm going to go ahead and pull that out of another vehicle. We're going to put the battery here. We're going to set of jumper cables, and I'm going to see if I can just hook that directly to the starter to get the starter to fire right off the battery power. Now that should work. That'll spin our engine. We'll be able to do that. I'll just go ahead and keep a battery charger on the battery so that we don't just juice it all down. It can't obviously charge itself if it's on the vehicle. It doesn't have an alternator or anything. So I'm going to set that all up here, and then we'll see if we can make some magic happen. All right, guys. Yesterday got away from me there. It was a long day. It was hard, but it's a new day. Got a new shirt and full of Monster energy, ready to punch holes in drywall, rage out. Let's show you what we got to yesterday here. So I realized once I got under there, you weren't going to be able to see anything. So I had to rip and tear a bunch of stuff out. Here's where we're at. Took the air conditioning compressor out, took out the alternator, and then I also had to get the manifold out of the way there. And then now you can hopefully see in the back there is the starter. Right out there. Now I got to get my finger out of the way so it'll focus again. There you go. There's the starter. Now, what I realized is I was kind of overthinking things, because once I got in there, I realized the power cable is still there running to the starter. My ground is all still connected. All I have to do is stick a battery in there, and then we can fire it right off the battery. All I need is a trigger wire for the starter solenoid. So right there, put a battery in. I just took off the cable here that connects to the fuse box and whatnot. Run all our accessories. So we're running just a cable down to the starter, and then we have our ground. I got a battery charger on there, and that should all work out fine. I hacked up a bit of a wiring harness here. I took the main plug for the starter is there. That's the trigger wire for that normally. But this way I can hook this. You see, I just put a connector on that. And then we have that wire running just right up to the positive terminal of the battery. Connected there. Now we can bypass the entire computer ignition system, immobilizer, everything. And once I plug this in, that'll direct power that solenoid, and that'll immediately fire the starter, because we already have power at the starter with the battery cable hooked up there as it's normally supposed to be. All we have to do is power that solenoid up, which will make that contact and let the power flow through, which will also engage the starter at the same time and then supply power to the starter. So let's get set up here and see if it works. And here we go, moment of truth. Worked. We just hacked the car. All right, sweet. I knew it would work, of course. That's how electronics work. So we should be all good here. I got the gauge. Let's see what our pressure readings are, and hopefully we're good on this thing. Start with cylinder 1. Well, not off to a good start. 120 pounds. That is terrible. But I'm going to do the rest of them here, and then if we have to, I'll go ahead and pour some oil in the cylinders there just to check where we could be losing pressure from. I don't suspect the timing is off. So if we had a valve sticking open that wasn't closing at top dead center, then we wouldn't be making any pressure. It would just be losing all the pressure out of the valves. Now, if we're losing pressure through the rings, because we have broken rings or something like that, or bad cylinder wall damage, doing a wet compression test should seal that up enough to make some pressure, like just it'll be a bit of an oil seal around the rings there. If we're still losing pressure after that, or not making good pressure, good chance head gaskets. I mean, the guy that crashed this thing, if he just kept driving it, like I say, I assume he was potentially drinking and driving. So if he crashed this thing and then tried to get away from his misdeed there, could have ran it right out of coolant, and then in that case just overheated the engine, and all the head gaskets would be cooked in the meantime. And there you go. Now you're not going to hold any compression at all. So If that's the case, though, we'll strip it down and check. But all I'm doing here right now for this video is I just want to check the compression and see where we're at. So, get on to the next one here. Defeated. That went terribly, but hey, stuff happens. What are you going to do? It was a gamble with this thing anyway. So, looks like we're sitting about an average of 120 pounds per cylinder. I had one as low as 100 pounds. That's terrible. I didn't want to see any lower than about 180, preferably up closer to 200. That would be a good sign of a healthy engine. For this engine anyway. I mean, you could be working on something different. The numbers are different. Depends on how much compression the engine generally runs. But for this one, I wanted to see better numbers. So I'm going to go ahead and stick the camera in the hole there. I got an inspection camera. We can take a look, see if we see anything that's immediately wrong. And then, like I said, I'll pour a bit of oil in one cylinder. I'll check and see if things come up and look any better. And I suspect it won't. I'm highly suspecting head gaskets here. So we'll check that out. We'll just try one cylinder. If it doesn't get any better, then so be it. This thing's going to come out of here anyway. And then well, maybe you guys will get to see me do head gaskets on the bench. And we'll go over that. So let's look in that hole first and see what we can see. All right, we're going to go ahead and just do this wet compression first here. The borescope camera's on charge. So while we're waiting, you really don't need much here. I know I got this gigantic oil bottle. It looks like I'm only going to pour like a tablespoon out of this thing right down the spark plug hole. So you really shouldn't need much. Just funnel out of here. Get our gauge back in. Now the main worry when it comes to having bad head gaskets, if that's what this is that you worry that somebody overheated this thing so bad that it potentially actually warped the metal of the head against the block. So now even if you put new gaskets in, it won't ever seal again. You'd have to take the head and shave it down like at a machine shop, get it milled down so that it's true and flat again. But if nothing else, this engine's junk. So at the current rate, so if I can do anything to fix it, I will. But I'm not going to get carried away with it. We're not doing a big project on this thing. So we still got some battery juice here. Let's do another turnover. Oh yeah, that's not good. Well, we got 120 on this cylinder before. I don't know if you can see that right now, but that is at 215 is where we got to. That is really good compression. So I don't like the look of that. So now I do need to get a scope camera in there and take a look at things, because if we were losing all our pressure through the piston rings, that's not great. However, I can replace those as long as the, I mean, I still have to take the head off either way. But if the cylinder's not scored up and wrecked, then it's still salvageable. We're all good. If there's anything that requires machine work, there's no way I'm getting into this. It'll just become paperweight and we'll sell her for scrap. I don't know if anybody even does that anymore, but it'll be in a junkyard somewhere, unless somebody wants to come take it off my hands for free and save me the trip to the dump. All right, borescope camera next. I need to invest in a better one of these. Oh, there we go. That one's a little farther down. So those look like valve reliefs in the piston, which should be there because it is very likely an interference engine, which means that if the valves are open and the piston comes up to top dead center while those valves are open, when they shouldn't be, then you would hit the valves on the piston. And that would break your valves and ruin your head. Now, let's see here. Going around. I don't see anything immediately jumping out here. Sometimes if the rings are broken, you can see you'll see like a little line or a shadow there when you go around the outside edge of the piston here. Which I'm not seeing that here. Unless you guys have better eyes than me, feel free to go ahead and let me know what I'm missing here, if my old eyeballs are not really capturing things as good as they should. I really hope those are reliefs there, in the valve reliefs in the piston. They definitely look like they are. So, but I think we're getting to the point here where we won't know until we open this thing. At the very least, I'm going to have to do that. So we'll go ahead and pull this camera out, and we'll just worry about getting the engine out of the car, and then probably for another day we will pull this thing apart and show you. All right, guys, what a bummer. We didn't get the result we wanted, but that's the way life goes sometimes. So I hope you learned something today. I hope this was helpful in some manner. If not, I hope you enjoyed watching me break my knuckles. And if you want to see that engine come apart, put it in the comments. Let me know. We'll see if we can get something together for that. I got to get it out of the car first, and a bunch more stuff to strip. But definitely, I want to pull that apart and see what's in there. So let me know if you want to see too, and I'll see you on the next one.